Hi, my name is John Ronaldson, and today I'll be talking to you about my work experience with the Logan City Council. So, the Logan City Council, or any council for that matter, tends to work a little bit differently from a regular organisation. In a regular organisation, they tend to work more closely with a client that is linked to a private company, or maybe the government, whereas a council tends to work very closely with the community. So often we'll get a call in saying there needs to be works done in somebody's street, or say a table drain that they've noticed that has been clogged up. Um, Also, the council tends to take a deeper stance on safety. So before I was even allowed to begin, I actually had to do my white card. Now, this was doable online. It basically just tested me on my knowledge on how to act and behave on a work site. So that came down to sign recognition, alarm recognition, personal protective equipment, among a few others, along with an evacuation procedure. Now, at the beginning of the week at the Logan City Council, we had a progress report meeting. During this meeting, we would discuss celebrations that we might have had, so whether we'd completed a task or any job that we might have had going for months or even years, and actually talk about the challenges that we had. So if something didn't work or something could have been improved upon, especially customer satisfaction. So community members who might have said that that something wasn't quite right in their area that they wanted us to fix up, and if we could get to it faster or make it a higher priority. So during my time, I was actually asked to chairman some of these meetings, and some of those tasks just involved bringing the minutes, keeping them updated, bringing team members into the meeting, making sure that everybody knew what they were doing at the end of the meeting, just basically making sure that it kept on track and that everybody understood exactly what they had to do. A big focus of these meetings was also on safety, so a lot of the members actually had to go out on mobile data collection. It's just making sure we knew where everybody was, if there were any problems, that they knew what was the procedure to take, and also just around the office, really, any sort of safety measures that needed to be talked about. One that was actually brought up while I was chairman was a concern with the safety of the vehicle that somebody was using during a mobile data collection period. Now, what their concern was lower back problem. So I actually went out in the vehicle. I drove around in it for a couple of days doing some of the inspections, but really trying to see what was wrong with this vehicle and why it might need to be updated. So it was actually deemed to be unsafe for long-term use, and we actually ended up having to go and test drive new vehicles to replace this vehicle under some certain guidelines, so for clearance and visibility sake. While inspecting the safety of this vehicle, one of my jobs was data collection. So I would go around with another member of the Logan City Council and look for any pavement failures or hazards out on the roads. So this was part of a plan called Citywide, which is basically about proactive maintenance. Rather than actually waiting for the community to call in and say, hey, we've got a problem on this road, we'd go out and try and find these problems. So this data collection actually keeps going. It's just part of a permanent monitoring process that usually takes about 3 months to go over the whole of the Logan City. So what we're really looking for are potholes or anything that could develop into a hazard. These tend to be little pavement failures or, say, line markings that don't make it quite clear where to go. And these are generally given a priority. So something that is deemed to be quite dangerous is given a high priority rather than a low. And hopefully the maintenance crew will get out to it a lot faster and fix it so it doesn't cause any actual problems. These hazards are entered into the council's mapping system, and this mapping system basically is a layout of the whole of the Logan City. This mapping system has different layers, which include table drains, open drains, bridges, pavement failures, potholes, road shoals, basically anything that the council has to monitor over a given time. So once these are entered, they're given to the maintenance teams, and hopefully the maintenance team is able to get to it quite quickly. If not, they can begin to build up, but generally they get to it quite quickly and are able to take them off themselves. Something that was noticed with this mapping system is, as it's a laptop that has to sit within the vehicle, it was seen to be a bit of a hazard. So one of the fellows brought up that he seemed to think it might be a bit of a projectile if the airbag went off. This actually led to a discussion which led to doing a risk analysis on this. So for this risk analysis, we basically had to determine the likeliness that it was going to happen and what the impact might be on the people or the car or any property inside the vehicle. So our main priority was obviously the person inside the vehicle. So we actually deemed it on the scale as unlikely to happen. So for an airbag to go off, the car generally has to be travelling above 60 kilometres an hour. Now, our vehicles are supposed to be doing only 40 kilometres an hour when they're doing their inspections. However, in between inspections, they will be getting up to anywhere around 100 kilometres an hour, which could be quite dangerous for the passenger. So we actually determined if the vehicle did hit and the airbag did go off, that it could be quite catastrophic. With the airbag going off and the laptop being propelled as an object at high speeds, we deemed it could actually cause death or serious injury. So this actually gave it quite a high rating and put it into an unacceptable field. So we actually had to come up with options that might lower this risk. Now, we came up with a couple of options with some varying degrees of success. One of the options was actually to take the airbag out altogether. Obviously, this would impact the safety of the person in the vehicle. We also ran into the problem of, was it actually legal? So this one was firstly scrapped. The second idea that we came up with was to move the person into the back of the vehicle until it was going under 40 kilometers an hour. This actually lowered the rating from catastrophic and unlikely down to rare and minor injury that could be incurred. So this was actually deemed to be acceptable, as well as another option of moving the laptop during movement. This actually also brought it down, but not as much because the laptop could still be used as a projectile and possibly hit the driver. As one of my final tasks while working at the Logan City Council, I was asked to look at their mapping layer, specifically their road shoulders. It was found that they were having a couple of problems trying to find any hazards or incorrectly drawn road shoulders on their mapping layer. This was mainly due to either a mistake done by the person with the GPS or just that the GPS was slightly out. So during this time, I was asked to, first of all, understand what a road shoulder was. And we basically decided that a road shoulder was an area that a car could pull over to safely. It also could not be curbed and channeled, and it had to be greater than 10 metres, just so that it would actually be safe for the car to pull out onto. While looking at this, I actually noticed a few areas for improvement. Just an easier way to scroll about the mapping layer, as it actually takes quite a while to load. This improvement could actually be seen through a graph that I would show in my progress reports, and actually got faster and faster at doing it each week. This actually became quite helpful. While learning this mapping system, I was asked to look at the design procedure. This was basically just a procedure that the council keeps to teach people how to use their systems so that another person doesn't have to go through it each time. While I found those improvements, I was then asked to update this design procedure so that other people may learn to use it and then actually show other people how to use this feature. As part of this maintenance cycle, I then had to look at action request forms that might have been handed in from the community or even the inspectors out on the road. This basically just showed us where we had to do some of the work, whether it be through the litter bins, drains, table drains that need to be cleared, bridges that might have been clogged or had some structural problems, and then actually just take them off the system so they wouldn't be looked at again and waste some time. This really just tied in the whole maintenance process from the citywide data collection, finding the potholes, to the actual maintenance, and then even the system fixing through ArcGIS and that mapping layer. So the Logan City Council tried to give me a bit of experience in all of the areas, I found that I learnt quite a bit through the team process and leadership during our meetings, a bit of the technical side through the mapping system, a little bit knowledge when looking for pavements and giving it a priority, and then a little bit again with the structural and talking to the structural engineers about what could be done. So that's really what my work experience entailed. I found it was quite useful, and I was able to tie in a lot of my engineering studies and a fair bit of the education that I've undergone in my degree. So thank you for listening to my video. I hope it gave you a greater understanding of what I have learnt during my work experience and how I've tied it in with the information from the uni. Thank you again.